In this episode, a morning surf turns into a bloody nightmare when a father of two jumps into the sea off Australia's east coast. A chilling photograph shows the moment that Toby Begg and fellow surfers realize they are being hunted by a great white. A second later, and Toby is fighting for his life inside the jaws of an incredible 4-meter-long shark just yards from the shore. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. On August 25, 2023, Toby Begg headed down to the water at Lighthouse Beach, south of Port Macquarie, on Australia's New South Wales coast. He was wearing his black wetsuit, just like he often did. He stepped down onto the sand and walked toward the surf with his bright blue surfboard under his arm. The conditions were lovely. The sun was shining and the water was warm. 6 others were in the water, enjoying their Friday morning surf. But just a few minutes later, Toby's life would change forever. Toby was a 44-year-old father of 2. He worked in the building trade, running his own business. He was a fit individual who used to work for the fire service. He enjoyed the outdoors and the surf. Living on Australia's east coast meant that the surf beaches were never far away. At the time, Toby joined 6 others in the ocean. He paddled out beyond the breakers to about 150 meters offshore. As he sat on his board, his legs dangling in the water and the tip of his board lifting up above the surface, something moved towards him. The morning sunlight shimmered off the glassy sea as Toby looked for the next wave to catch. A photographer on the beach was scouring the water for dolphins at the time. He rotated his camera lens to zoom in on the surfers and snapped a shot. It was a photograph that would later send chills down the spine. Unbeknown to the photographer, he had just captured the moment before Toby's life would change forever. It was an apparently unremarkable photo, but look a little closer and it's possible to see a patch of disturbed water directly behind a bodyboarder and just feet away from Toby. The 2 men glanced down at that second. That's when it dawned on them that they were within feet of a great white shark. Measuring a massive 4 meters or 13 feet long, its tail swished from side to side, just inches below the surface, causing the water to boil slightly, disturbing the water just enough for the 2 men to notice. But rather than swim past the 2 men, it launched an attack a second later. It grabbed hold of Toby, tearing into his legs. He gripped his surfboard with all his might, refusing to be dragged underwater. When he cried out, the other surfers swam to his aid. As the shark tugged on his legs and thrashed its head from side to side, Toby's legs were torn open. Muscle was ripped from bone as the serrated teeth crunched down. Toby tried to kick the shark away, but it had his legs firmly in its jaws. Each time Toby smacked the shark with his fist, the shark readjusted its grip. It released him momentarily and then came back for more. It was determined to secure a meal, but not as determined as Toby was to survive. The water bubbled and boiled around him, a commotion of dark gray shark fins. Toby in his bright blue surfboard. He splashed about in the water, frantically fighting the huge giant off. Horrified onlookers could only watch as he tried to push the shark away and tried to keep himself above the surface. At one point, it looked like a losing battle as the seconds ticked by. It was a prolonged and sustained attack. The agonizing ordeal went on for more than 30 seconds. 30 seconds in which Toby refused to give up. Eventually, the shark released him and swam away. The 44-year-old scrambled back onto his board and with the help of the others around him, paddled to shore. A blood trail lingered behind him, tainting the blue waters. Lauren Enfield, who was also surfing at the time and witnessed the horrific sequence of events, rushed to the beach to call for help. She ran up to a mother and daughter who were on the sand to alert them of what had just happened, and they immediately called the emergency services. When Toby made it to shore, he could see the extent of his injuries, and he collapsed on the sand. Witnesses rushed to his side. One teenage girl stood and stared, shocked by what she saw. Toby's wetsuit was torn and tattered. The sand turned red around his body. He didn't respond to those around him. He was frozen. His eyes were fixed in a stare. She could see his foot had been severed from one leg, and a devastating gash had ripped the leg from the hip all the way down to his calf. The other leg was badly mauled below the knee. His bright blue surfboard had been snapped in two, with puncture marks and teeth marks scraped along the paintwork. Incredibly, there was an emergency doctor on the beach at the time who rushed to help. The quick actions of those around Toby may have just saved his life. They grabbed his surfboard cord and wrapped it around one of his legs to form a tourniquet. They used sticks as a makeshift splint to hold the leg straight and waited for emergency responders to arrive. He was rushed to Port Macquarie Base Hospital. He arrived in critical condition, but doctors managed to stabilize him. They were unable to save his most badly damaged leg. The decision was made to airlift him by the Westpac rescue helicopter to John Hunter Hospital in Newcastle. There, surgeons tried desperately to save the other leg. At the time of making this video, Toby was in a stable but serious condition. His brother-in-law set up a GoFundMe page to help the family through the temporary loss of the main breadwinner. He had undergone several surgeries at the hospital, and the road to recovery would be long and painful. From the size and shape of the bite marks on Toby's board, and from what witnesses described, it's been assumed that the species involved was a great white shark. Great whites have been spotted along that stretch of coastline the previous day, and smart drum lines used to catch sharks had caught 3 sharks that day, including one at Lighthouse Beach. The smart drum lines are baited lines attached to a GPS alert system. It sends a signal when an animal has been caught on the line. Authorities then race to the line that's been triggered and drag the animal, ideally a shark, offshore to at least 3,000 feet, where it's then released. Critics say that there's a significant amount of bycatch caught on the lines, such as leatherback turtles, and having baited lines offshore only entices predators, like sharks, closer to the beaches. Furthermore, as this incident proves, drumlines don't catch all sharks in the area, and human-shark encounters still occur at beaches where drumlines have been deployed. At the time of making this video in September 2023, there have been 7 shark attacks in Australian waters this year. In some parts of the world, such as along South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal coastline, shark nets have been installed. These may be more effective at deterring sharks, but they often kill large numbers of both sharks and other marine animals. Although shark attacks make headlines across the world and can devastate the lives of those involved, being bitten by a shark is still incredibly unlikely given the number of people who enter the water each day.